Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, getting ready to continue to wage war on the Grand Canyon State as the Sun Devils visit United Supermarkets Arena, and the story of how throwing $10 million at the transfer portal can get you so on the radar. I think you just actually own the radar by now.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And thanks as always for making us your first listen with the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you on another game day as we'll be looking ahead to hoops from United Supermarkets Arena. Arizona State coming to town as we're cooking ongoing beef with the Grand Canyon State. We turn our attention from Wildcats to Sun Devils. Losers of 3 straight, however. Somewhat doused Devils coming to town. We'll discuss in just a moment. And also we will discuss, relevancy and being on the radar. How much worth of radar? About $10 million worth of radar we've got to discuss this week as Texas Tech clearly in the spotlight, and we'll dive into some things divulged courtesy of an ESPN feature regarding the portal success for Joey McGuire and the Red Raiders, and discuss some of what we took away from that, Chris, but also looking ahead what that means for the 2025 experience one, which will certainly be a high-stakes one, if nothing else. But we'll start with Grant McCaslin's guys as the Red Raiders are looking to bounce back after a trip to Tucson left them with an L. We saw a winning streak come to an end at 7, so trying to get another one started. And what you said has kind of stuck in my mind just from a numbers standpoint is you're looking ahead to opportunities in the Big 12 and trying to remain in contention for some Big 12 hardware. Kind of goes without saying these are must wins. You kind of segmented it in a way to say you need to host Houston winners of 4 straight. So it's got to begin here with this one.
Yeah, and this begins the tricky portion of your schedule. This is where you really find out how good and I do think you have a really good head coach that keeps his team grounded and on point from hour to hour, day to day, and not looking at all the stuff that we're sitting here talking about. But Arizona State will roll in here. I don't know whenever people are watching or listening or consuming this show, I don't know what it'll be right then at the time you're watching, listening, but the time that Vegas posted this game, it has you as like nearly a 17-point favorite. Do I envision that happening? I'd love for it to happen. I don't necessarily know if I see it, but we'll see. Again, tricky. Arizona State's coming off of a game. They're 1-4 in their last 5, but if you look at the 4 losses, Kansas State, one of the hottest teams in the country. Iowa State, no shame in that. Kansas and Arizona. So there's no, and Oklahoma State obviously is the tricky one. But they also had, I think they were missing 3 starters in said game, 2 to suspension, and 1 that got injured early on in the game in Jaden Quaintance, and they hung in there for a little while in Stillwater. So. Yeah, but this is I had to go look this up to be sure because I've been doing this long enough to where Tech played a home and home with these guys back in I think the 12 and 13 and 13 and 14 season. You lost both of them. Both of them were fairly lopsided. They were both right in that mid to late December game, like right before Christmas break. And I had to go look at it to be sure, but you haven't beaten this program since like the 50s, man.
We got a lot of beef stored up. We're mad.
Yeah, and it's not like Arizona State basketball is some juggernaut. I mean, I played high school basketball against a guy named Steven Smith. If you don't know who that is, his nickname was Headache. If you don't know who that is, there's a 30 for 30 after him. It was a bit of a scandal. But that's the one thing that I guess I just know about Arizona State basketball over the course of the last however many years. In my lifetime, they were making moves for the wrong reasons around that time because of a point shaving scandal. But this particular team, like Jaden Quaintance, who is somebody that Grant coached in the summertime, he's a 5-star center. He's only 17 years old, so he's not eligible to go be a one-and-done guy. And I think if he was one-and-done, he would go in the first round. Not eligible to do that because of his age. He reclassified and all those things, but he leads the country, I think, in block shots. He's a guy that messed up his ankle in Stillwater over the weekend, so don't know what his status will be for tonight. But if he plays, I mean, he's going to protect the rim, literally. And if he doesn't, but they've also got another kid named Josan Sanin that is also a 5-star guard that I think had 17 points or something versus the Pokes over the weekend too. So it's a very talented team. Bobby Hurley, though, on the hot seat. His AD has come out in recent days after that little incident with Arizona where he took his team off the court and no shaking hands, and it's kind of critical of his head basketball coach. But in his 10th year, they only have 3 NCAA tournament bids, and I think they've 4 20-win or more seasons. And they're going to have to hurry to get that either check either box this particular year. So he's on the hot seat, and people are starting to squawk. So I bring all that up to say you're going to get a desperate team. You're going to get a couple of guys coming off of a suspension that were suspended on Sunday, 2 starters, B.J. Freeman and Adam Miller. So I don't know, man. But, again, tricky. It's a Run DMC song, I guess. But, we'll
Wasn't it Arizona State's AD or somebody associated with their school that was, and maybe he's been replaced since then, that was just so put off by the thought of traveling to Morgantown, West Virginia, whenever their conference was crumbling, was being destroyed around them, and they were speaking from upon high there in Tempe, Arizona, about what they wouldn't do. Wasn't it an Arizona State guy?
It was, one of the Arizona schools. I do remember this. I think you're probably right.
The Arizona State guy.
Yeah.
They made the actual comment. I mean, I'm sure a lot of them were thinking of it. I mean, that's fine.
Yeah. Well, because and I mean, if we can allow to share our opinions, stop scheduling games that start at like 9 Central. I would like to take a rain check on said start times going forward, whether it be football or basketball, but we can't always get what we want, can we? Especially when it the other night it would have been 9:44 Central Time. Like, what are we doing? But
down the road, right?
8 o'clock tip tonight. Should be a great crowd. Your team will need it. I think Grant has said coming into this game that Chance is fine. So, and I would expect the guys like Federico and Kevin Overton and Kerwin, some of those guys that didn't play as well as they wanted to over the weekend to bounce back. And but you really need to start playing some good basketball, but you also need results. And again, if you're trying to stay in that conference race, but you're also just trying to continue to improve, continue to build your resume, and this is why it's tricky, is that you can only do harm to yourself. You can't necessarily help yourself a ton. Helping yourself is just maintaining what you're doing and getting these results, because like the not getting the result would be very harmful based on the lack of what you're going to see on paper. But it's not the way it plays out. It's harder than that. I mean, they've got desperate coaches that they feel like, I mean, if we get this one, we could go on a run like Kansas State did. I mean, and there's teams that do this. I mean, we're seeing one play out right now out of Manhattan. And so anyway, it's just this will be an interesting one. So we shall see.
I always got to ask you about somebody's body part to lead the conversation when I'm talking about the Red Raiders. Like, is it a knee? Is it an ankle? Is it a head thing? Is it a leg thing? Is it a psychological thing? Whatever might be on the list. You mentioned Chance McMillan already, and that's kind of what I was going to ask. Is he now shuffled to the top of like the health priority watch list? Where are we at with Darrion, JT? First, today's episode brought to you by Wayfair, and there's nothing after the holiday hustle to get you back into a routine like decluttering, refreshing, and giving your space a little TLC. Whether you're tidying up, cleaning out, or just want to give your place a new look to start the year, Wayfair has everything you need all within your budget. And their huge selection makes it easy to find that specific item to fit your style. Plus the free and no-hassle delivery, even for the bigger stuff. Wayfair's site is so easy to navigate. You're going to find everything you need in no time. And there's something for every style, every home, no matter the space, no matter the budget. So give your home the refresh it needs with Wayfair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. You mentioned Chance McMillan already, and that's kind of what I was going to ask. Is he now shuffled to the top of like the health priority watch list? Where are we at with Darrion, JT? I mean, you could mention a few, right? Unfortunately.
Yes, you can. I just know, Grant was asked about him yesterday, and he said he's fine. He said we got some colds going around the team, and everybody's fine. Chance is fine, all that stuff. So I would expect.
Yeah, we haven't got that game in yet, right? Like we had last year, where you got to play with like 4.5 or something. I think we had an assistant personnel director suiting up.
Yeah, was that not the year before?
Was that 2 years ago? It was the trip to Waco that I'm thinking of. Whenever that was.
Okay, well, and then there was one to Ames, Iowa, too, where you KJ Allen played like 25 minutes.
That's right. Yeah, we've had a couple
minutes.
Yeah, I think last year was in McCaslin's first year. Remember, they were. McCaslin was sick too himself.
Yes, he was. He was under the weather. Flew in the day of the game. And you had some guy. Yeah, Warren Washington didn't play in that game. You're right. That was a trip to Waco.
So we hadn't had one of those. Let's not go
streams. Yeah, I know, and it's just going around. I mean, you're seeing all these. There's schools that are just shutting down for the day, or whatever, because the flu and all that stuff going around. So, anyways, you want to keep your guys healthy, but I think Chance will be fine tonight. So we'll kind of see what that looks like.
And we got measles, double digits, few counties over to think about. Good Lord, a lot of Aggies in that county, as I understand it. Just for the record, Chris, I really feel like when you're talking about getting closer to March, and you sort of want to be. It's maybe just kind of something like fans, I don't know, overstate or overemphasize. Maybe that's what I'm going to do. But as you think about playing your best basketball at the right time of year, to me, that kind of begins with which individuals do I really want to see kind of begin to find a rhythm. And that may even be a little too early as we sit here just about to reach the midway point in February. But I think I said this a couple of weeks ago, man, I want to see guys like Darrion Williams maybe reassert themselves as, hey, I'm this category of player in the Big 12 conference, and I can put up this kind of game. There have been some really good, obviously, outings from him this season. I don't feel like we've quite seen that best of the best version of Darrion Williams just yet. So he, again, a guy I'm looking at, and I don't know about you, but not to add more pressure to a young guy's shoulders, but Christian Anderson, if you want to continue to play like an all Big 12 player as a freshman, would love to see some more of what you got, because he may have been coming off his best game of the year, given some of the context and where he was, what was going on, and what he was able to do. I don't know. You marked that as a high point for him so far? It was pretty nice.
Yeah, and we probably are focusing a lot more on it had you won the game than it coming in a losing effort. But point still made, and I totally agree with you. This is also the point of the season where typically freshmen around the country, like very talented ones, start to hit their stride, and they start to they're not freshmen anymore. Mm-hmm. They start to change the way you view teams a bit, because they are starting to figure it out and get more confidence and all these things. Again, this is a different category of freshmen, not just all of them. And I think you're maybe starting to see a little bit of that, although he's been playing pretty darn well and consistent. I just go back to that Cincinnati game. And then obviously the trip to Arizona. So that's really his, like most players, that's his next challenge is can I do this night in and night out? Even when I don't have my fastball, can I still?
And as the tape on him stacks up.
Sure, absolutely.
Season.
And they take, and that's the beautiful thing about his game is that it doesn't really lead to okay, we shut this spot on the floor down or we take this away from him. He's got a little bit of everything. He'll He'll shoot a three from anywhere. He'll shoot the fadeaway. He's got the one-legged Dirk Nowitzki kind of thing going. Some of it's unorthodox. He's just a hooper, and so that's the beauty of what you're suggesting there. Is he will figure it out, and he'll figure out whatever is needed at that particular time. But again, like I think Coach McCaslin said about Elijah Hawkins recently, it's his defense that's gotten so improved. It's the same thing with Christian Anderson. And I think it was important that Grant made the comment. We've talked about how small you are, and you are. And Grant said, but I'm a good friend with Tommy Lloyd, which we know, the Arizona head coach. And Tommy Lloyd, if you listen to what he said after the game, he's like, they are smaller, but they are very physical for, like their stature, and they bump you off drives. They do different things. So for a smaller group of guards, they are very physical. And I think that's probably something we need to start pointing out more. But like Anderson and Hawkins are two of the main things or main guys you're talking about in that sense. And it's very much a compliment, and they are maximizing their potential and realizing how much they need to embrace the challenge of, playing with contact, causing it, playing, all the stuff. That's just what this league dictates. Whether you have the ball or you're trying to guard the ball, you've got to be able to embrace that aspect of it.
Yeah, I think a lot of that starts with really just being a great competitor, which I certainly think both of those guys are, as far as what we've seen so far this season. And I'm glad you mentioned that about kind of finding a way for Christian Anderson, because I was actually having this conversation with the Matador Mob insider. Shout out to our guy Mitch. Was kind of asking about whether or not I felt like Anderson had been creating and going out and getting some of what he's gotten. Is he just taking advantage? And I don't mean to say just, because it's still a great thing to do it, but taking advantage of opportunities that are there for him because of attention paid to teammates elsewhere on the floor by the opposition. And I don't know, I thought maybe there was a bit of a mixture there. And we were kind of wondering, hey, you get later on into the year, you keep putting up games like that. Do you get a little more defensive attention? And then can you still kind of repeat some of what you've been doing? And I think hearing you say figuring it out, or his ability to figure it out, is kind of music to our ears if we're wondering about those kinds of questions.
Yeah, I think the way I would, because there's been maybe like I could count on one hand how many times I've felt like in the course of this season that Christian Anderson has tried to force something. There's been a few times, and he'll look over at Grant and go, "That's on me," but it's very few. He just kind of plays the game, and like it's not, he's not robotic. It's like, okay, I have to go here. This is where I want to shoot it, and I'm running this play. You're not running it. I mean, he plays a pick and roll so well. Like he gets you in jail when he gets that defender on his back. He keeps him in jail, and like then he plays the leverage, and he's got, okay, now we turned it into a 2-on-1, and he has a knack, man. He just has a good feel for it, and it's hard to teach, but it sure is fun to watch play out when he's on your team because it's hard to scout that standpoint. Now you can do different things and make him go this way, not let him, or try to bump him and bully him and all. You can do all these different things, but I just think he's got a game that kind of translates to, okay, you take this away, or I can do this, or he's not dominant one hand or the other necessarily. Anyway, it's a special kid, man, and I appreciate watching him, though, even get better than where we've already kind of seen, because I'm a wonder if we're starting to see some of that. But that's the next thing, is like it'll be consistency. And you still got 6 weeks, hopefully 8 of your season, so there's still plenty still to go here.
I feel like I'm already getting a little used to it. I'm slapping myself in the face watching it like, hey, freshman out here doing this, so don't take it for granted. But man, it's been awesome to watch, and it's been pretty dang consistent. I really think he would be in the running for one of the most consistent players this season. From the very beginning to right now, I think he would be on the short list for one of the most consistent players within his given role that we've seen for Tech so far this season. Anyway, next opportunity coming up from the USA, and hope we're seeing a lot more of all the good stuff we've seen so far as Tech is looking to bounce back and get a new win streak started with the Sun Devils of Arizona State. So we'll chop it up on the other side of that and discuss the result. And before we get out of here, Chris, I've got to ask you about something making waves this week in the land of Red Raider football. You may have seen this headline, this feature from ESPN, and I believe it was Max Olson putting this together related to Texas Tech's portal success and featuring some familiar names, guys like Joey McGuire and James Blanchard and Cody Campbell. Headline, has Texas Tech built a college football power in the portal? Now, there was a whole lot to chop up here as far as some details maybe divulged that we weren't aware of, or just sort of some processes that we weren't aware of. And Coach McGuire and Cody Campbell and James Blanchard were talking about these things. And there was also a price tag attached to this effort within this article, Chris. So as we're talking about being on radars and having relevancy as a program, you got about $10 million worth of radar relevancy here this week. And man, I was really interested to hear from you on how you process some of what was included here, and also in general, if you can put your fan hat on for a moment, how you feel as a Red Raider fan seeing Texas Tech in this context as we sit here this offseason.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll ever know. I could ask certain people and find out this answer, but I guess one of the first things I was curious about when I saw this, because it was a feature-y article, and there was lots of, you got players quoted in this deal. These players haven't been made available to the general media here in town. Blanchard was quoted. He's not somebody that's made available to the media. Joey was quoted, Cody Campbell was quoted, all that stuff. So it made me wonder, like, who wanted this article written? Who pitched this idea? Was this like was this something that Tech would have wanted out? Did Max pitch this? Did they get together? I don't know how like it came out of, because it was well done, and I learned quite a bit from reading it. I was a bit, I don't know, in some ways taken back by like how, like, hey, our chips are in the middle of the table. We expect a Big 12 championship, and we've never done this before, but and it was just a lot of all-in talk, and I just know how hard it all is. You got to get lucky. Yes, you have to have talent. Then you got to maximize that talent. Then you have to stay healthy. You got to get lucky. The ball's got to bounce your way. You got to get a good call somewhere along the ways. You got to be able to win when you don't have it. All this stuff, right? And yet you were one conference win away from playing for it last year, and so you were right there on the cusp of this, and I think they felt like they had, we've got an opportunity here. Let's try, and for that I appreciate it more than anybody. Rather be thankful my school is trying, whereas others are going, I just don't know if that works, whatever. But you tried to add some serious talent to your roster in the not just all old guys, one and dones, but there was a healthy mixture of several 2 and in some cases 3-year guys with a lot of size, and you're just trying to kind of fast forward, and you tried to judge the character of everybody. So hopefully it all meshes and gels together. But again, I go back to, it was just an interesting piece to have out there, because it's just something that it just puts a lot of pressure on people. Maybe that's what they all want. I had Joey tell me on a coach's show one time, like, I guess it was, I don't know if it was like I guess it would have been 2 years ago, where I just took my staff today. I'm like, no, sir. I have no idea. Where'd you take your staff? He's like, I showed him it was when the Womble and all the South End Zone was being built and their offices were being built. It was way before it was ever done. And he's like, I wanted them to see it. I wanted them to see the magnitude of it. I wanted them to feel the pressure and the enormity of what is being built here for them. And they need to feel that. And they need to coach to that. And everybody needs to up it. And so maybe nobody is afraid of said pressure or speaking things into existence or whatever. I'm protecting my emotions, but I'm just like more comfortable, a little more under the radar, and like, you know what I mean? And you get what I'm saying. You totally get what I'm saying. You've been following this place around here for a long time, like I have, and I'm like,
since I hit the ground, Chris.
Yeah, in one vein, I'm like, I'm just waiting for somebody to pull the rug out, man. Right? Okay. And like, please don't upset me again, because I've been upset so many times. And then the other part of it is, and I think what some of these guys are saying is the old acronym that I used to say this all the time, HSMFC, have some mother confidence. And so, but it's just hard, and I'll get there. And I do think you've added, like your defensive line, people will tell you is going to be scary good. And that pleases me after just watching the Super Bowl and what Pat Mahomes had to endure.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we're going to sack him how many times? And we're not going to blitz once. Like, it's a cheat code is what it is. Like, if you're Sheil Wood, you're like, yeah, I coach really good defense. We don't blitz at all. Well, if you got really special dudes up front, I mean, Vic Fangio's like, yeah, man, I called a hell of a game. I mean, whatever.
It's like you've already said, when Lee Hunter walks in the door, the strength and conditioning coach is better all of a sudden. The
yes.
is better all of a sudden.
Yes, yes.
Coach is better. They're all better, but
yeah.
So. And the quote from Joey McGuire in the article, quote, "We're pushing all our chips in." There were no vague allusions to what they were trying to do. And then Coach Campbell saying a little bit later on, quote, "We are going to have the most talented roster in the conference, and I don't think it's going to even be close. We have never, ever been in that position." That one kind of blew me away. And I'll say this, when you're in a position of a Cody Campbell, or obviously you are working at the behest of Texas Tech University to try to win games, you got to feel that way. And I think you should embrace bold aspirations and expectations, and you've got to create a high standard for guys to strive for. And you do have to kind of speak some things into existence. As for a fan, or say a podcast host, I think I can shiver me timbers a little bit, because I've been in this thing since 1984, and I know others have been in this thing for even longer than that, and we all understand how this can go. So we will believe it when we see it, and we're all anxious to see it. You can't necessarily feel that way when you're the one that's supposed to be turning the wheel or pedaling the boat, So yeah. I get why, and I love it. I'm glad that Joey McGuire is that way, because I think that generates, kind of it generates something that people want to follow, I think, and get on board with. And I'm talking about his players and his coaching staff.
Yeah, I mean, and they are, most everybody that every football team around here that I've ever been a part of, or covered or broadcasted for, whatever, you've been around enough team huddles or practices or whatever, and it's like Big 12 champs. That's how they break a huddle, right? That's always the goal. This is just a little bit more out there, and I think there's a dollar figure attached to it, and nobody should shy away from that. I mean, this is what you're in the business for, really, because it's a business, more so now than ever before. It's just again, maybe it's just like the under the radar part of it is a little more fun, I guess, because you can kind of sneak around the chicken coop a little bit and kind of because. And maybe I'm just like it's not just the pull the rug out mentality, but it's like, oh man, I don't want to hear from all of my friends of other programs that are using this commentary back at me if it doesn't work out, right? So, but hey, screw it.
I'm a group of folk out here, all right, and it's because we've been abused before, all right.
Yes.
All expectations, but let's get nuts, because as for now, why would you not expect them to win them all? But we're sitting here 0-0.
Maybe we can both take a page out of the acronym book and HSMFC. Yeah. So yeah.
I don't know. I'm maybe still working on a trust but verify kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Everybody approach it in their own fashion. I tell you what, after you're appropriately lubed in that West Side parking lot or wherever you may be, confidence starts increasing.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Before kickoff. You know what? I really think we can take these guys, but we're way, way ahead of that. So I don't know. Talk to me again just before kickoff as we get to the end of August, Chris. Maybe I'll have built a little confidence by then. Would love to hear from you guys out there who obviously have been dyed in the wool for a long time, as far as red and black running through your veins, and how you're feeling about this spotlight, because there's no way around that, Chris. It is a spotlight. I mean, I think your question about how does this come together is an interesting one. And I don't know why Texas Tech wouldn't want this out there. So regardless of whether or not it was initiated on their end, it is a great thing, I think, for the Red Raider football program, but it also comes with expectations, obviously, you got to live up to a little bit ways down the road.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll kind of offer up on it, and I do want to get to a Howard Sampson antidote the next time that we do reconvene and tape one of these shows, because I think there's a fun story that you can actually weigh in on a bit as well. He's the left tackle, but I think it was an interesting glance into their process and like how long this process had been going in preparation for. And so they were ready to pounce. They were ready to be active. I think you had people like, Cody and John and Gary Peterson and, Mark McDougall or Tim Culp, all the names that Joey had mentioned that one deal. And just, it's those kinds of folks that made their ability to pounce possible, and Dusty and everything. So, and that's where if they chose right and you coach right and they picked right and they sorted through character right, and all that's when this thing could get pretty special. And so, I guess it remains to be seen. Also, before I go, man, shout out to our man Jason out in Florida. Apparently, Red Raider out there, and so Jason, guns up, my man. Yep, there's your one from Cowan and I right there. So Jason in Florida, yeah. We see you. We hear you. Appreciate you watching old Locked On Texas Tech whenever you get a chance.
I do got to say this, probably the favorite quote or tidbit from that look at the portal effort was this from James Blanchard. And I kind of chimed in on this during the portal window, talking about embracing this car crash that it can be, or this chaotic collision course that it can be. He said, "It is chaotic, but I'm a psychopath for it." To me, it's becoming the most exciting event of the college football season for personnel people. National Signing Day used to be our Super Bowl, not anymore. The portal window is now, and I love it, end quote. And that was scratching me where I itch. There's something about that. Anybody describing themselves as it relates to their pursued profession as a psychopath for it, I respect that. I got to respect that. Garbage collector, jump rope teacher, physical education instructor, podcast host, whatever. Go out there and be a psycho for it. In the words of James Blanchard. All right, Chris, we'll get back together to get our psycho on next time around. And I'm looking forward to it already, man. Appreciate the time and the insights as always. We'll see you then.
You got it, man. Guns up, everybody. You too, Jason in Florida. Yeah, we see you. But keep hope alive. Hope to see you at the arena this evening. Red Raiders will need your voices in the seats and loud and proud and seeking another result in the Big 12 Conference. So time to bounce back from that trip to Tucson.
That's right. Get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you miss nothing as we roll through the week. Shout out to the everydayers for always being there. Love you. And shout out to the Matador Mob. Double love for you as well. Hit the show notes to find a link to a free 14-day trial. That's your direct line to Chris and myself with one-on-one text sent straight to your phone. For Chris, I'm Casey. Thanks for the time as always. We hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.